Vad säger du, Hassan?
What they're looking at, Don, if he can hit that front one right on the nose, he will make a triple kill. If he hits that top one right on top of the 8-foot, he'll make a triple. Maybe just a little on the high side, drive them all back. And that's what he's looking at.
Certainly not the type of shot, though, you want to play in the very first end.
Oh, listen, you want a wide open hit the very first end. Look at all the rocks in play. 3 Canadian rocks in the 4-foot, 1 full in the 8-foot. And he's looking to get out of this end somehow. That's why he wants to play the hit.
Well, in our opening comments, we said there have not been many rocks in play in most games, and it's been very difficult ice to draw on. However, in this very first end, we have a mess of granite out there, and Stefan Hasselborg is certainly right up to his neck in those yellow-handled Canadian rocks.
Vad hade jag is på förra?
The other semifinal this afternoon featuring David Smith of Scotland and Steve Brown of the United States, and Scotland leads 1-0.
Well, for Hasselborg, Don, if he wants to come down here and hit this rock, drive it over here, he may drive 2, maybe 3 Canadian rocks out of there. With the out-turn draw, he has to draw right to the 1-foot, and that's too tough very first end. So what he's trying to do is keep this end down, maybe make a double, hopefully make a triple. If he hits it on the high side, he will make a triple.
But he doesn't want to throw this inside at all, or he'll reckon that red rock sitting just outside the 12.
See, if Ed Lukowich's rock was right on that center line, he'd have no shot.
A very key shot on this opening end for Stefan Hasselborg.
Oh, he's throwing big weight at it. He's upped his weight, Donnie, and he's just going to clip the front one, I think. Canada's going to steal 3 maybe here.
Maybe 4.
No, 3.
A steal of 3 for Canada on the opening end, to the delight of the majority of spectators here in the CNE Coliseum. A great start for Ed Lukowich and the Canadian champions from Calgary. They lead by 3 after 1 end. It will be very exciting on CBC television, and we've got excitement for you here at the CNE Coliseum. During round-robin play, David Smith and his Scottish squad, a perfect record, 9 wins and no losses. Sweden and Canada, identical marks of 6 and 3. Now, to determine the 4th rink, a tiebreaker was required, and in those tiebreakers, Switzerland beat Norway 3-1. And then the United States beat Switzerland by a score of 7-1. There was also tiebreakers for the last 2 positions. And, Don, that's quite important to the ranks that finished in those last 2 positions.
Well, that's right, Don, because the other members of the ICF can challenge that last team. If there's more than 2 challengers, like if there's 3 challengers, the last 2 teams have to be challenged by these remaining countries. The remaining countries, of course, are England, Wales, Holland, Finland, Luxembourg, Austria, and Japan. And they must submit their challenges by June the 1st. And they play that challenge round in Sweden just before the European Championship, which takes place in Copenhagen in December. So it's very important, like if 3 or more countries challenge, those last 2 spots, these guys have to play off to get here next year.
Brett Syme manages to run the Swedish rock and leave his own stone sitting in the 4-foot. Canada lies 1. Canada leading with that steal of 3 on the opening end. This is one of the best starts that Lukowich has had in any game throughout the week.
I think if you look, this is the only game he's been ahead of in the first end. But, you know, Don, it's a tough type of game to play when you get 3 in the first end. You're playing a defensive game. You're running everything off. The other team is putting up corner guards and playing their draws, you know, and you're playing straight takeouts. When it gets down maybe 6th, 7th end and the game is fairly close and you've got a draw, you don't understand draw weight because you've been playing takeouts for 6 or 7 ends. So it's a tough game for Canada to play, be on the defensive all the time.
That stone slides into the top of the 12-foot. Canada still lies 1. That delivery by Swedish lead Lars Wernbloom.
Well, you see, Lukowich is not going to take any chances. That rock is yelling down to his...
The regular appeal.
Now, you heard him say regular appeal. Now, they have a regular weight for making takeouts or for running off guards. It might be just a little bit stronger, a little bit faster rock. That's why he said peel or regular.
Now, for some people, perhaps are not totally familiar with curling strategy and terminology. When they talk about the type of weight, what are they relating to?
Well, how much weight they want the rock, how much they're going to let it go, like that is peel weight. Now, that's a little stronger than their normal takeout weight. Their normal takeout weight might be just enough weight to take that rock and hit it right to the bumper.
But what I meant was they can't determine weights for every different sheet of ice they play on, so they're always referring to what they're used to at their home.
That's right.
At their home.
That's right. If you curl at a curling club and the ice is very fast, they'll come out in the sheet and say, well, look at it. It's exactly the same as our curling club. Or it's 3 feet heavier. They give it the number 3, or it's 7 feet heavier. They give it the number 7.
The Swedes ignoring that stone belonging to Canada in the 4-foot. They were trying to throw up a guard, but it came in a little deeper than they wanted.
Well, that's right. Canada wants to play in the house. They're 3 up, of course. They want to just play simple takeout, nothing complicated. That rock was supposed to stop out in front. Now Canada, if they hit it and lie 2.
Regular.
Of course, the more rocks in play, the tougher it is for Ed Lukowich. He'd like to play it simple and wide open, give Sweden 1 this end, and then maybe take 2 the next end and kind of blow them away. And for Sweden, of course, the more rocks in play, the better it is for them, because Canada might make a mistake, drive it onto one of their own, and get their 2 points back. The thing for Sweden, they have to be patient. They can't panic because Canada scored 3.
Neil Houston removes that Swedish stone and rolls in the 4-foot. Canada lies 2. Lukowich will be quite happy to keep everything in the 4-foot, everything away from in front of the rings.
Yep. Seeing where they are now, even if he freezes that one, he's not shot rock, but Sweden will just come down to it, hope that Canada makes a mistake, and this is a good call. He has last rock. If it doesn't work out for him, he's going to get his 1, which isn't good, but he's got to remain calm. He's got to concentrate, have a lot of patience. Now, I wouldn't be a bit surprised on if this one stopped short and Lukowich wouldn't guard it. Those rocks are in the 4-foot. They're in the center of the sheet, and that's where Lukowich wants to play. Let's see. Eh? Exactly. He says, well, I'm going to put these guys away early. He's going right to the attack. You see, perfect guard. A lot of guys might run that guard off. But then, if you run it off, Don, you give Sweden a chance to make a better freeze to it. They're doing a little bit of gambling here, and Lukowich is going to take away that gamble.
And is this the type of game now that Lukowich likes to play?
Well, he favors this game on good curling ice. Like if the rock is curling 2.5 feet from one side to the other, you know, there's a little bit of movement to the rock where you can go around rocks and bury them. This ice is very difficult to bury because it runs very straight. It does all its curling just about the last 6-8 feet, just in front of the rings.
Line. Good line.
You hear him yelling, good line.
Whoa, you see? No, up. Right up.
He doesn't want him too far into the house.
Stone delivered by John Ferguson comes down to the top of the 8-foot. Canada lies 3. This is certainly not the type of game that Stefan Hasselborg wanted to get involved in.
No, well, see that rock sitting on the center line? That is a dangerous. He cannot afford to leave that one there.
This is the 3rd time that we have seen Hasselborg in a Silver Broom semifinal. In 1983, in his first appearance in Regina, he lost to eventual world champion Eddie Werenek of Canada by a score of 8-5. And that was the year that Werenek and Hasselborg created a bit of controversy. Werenek in particular, with his comments about the use of the corn brooms by the Swedish rink and how they were littering the ice. But those hard feelings dissipated. In 1985, Hasselborg was back, and he lost in the final to Al Hackner by a score of 6-2. In 1984, Hasselborg lost in his country's final to Bjorn Rudström. So 3rd, Michael Hasselborg removes that Canadian stone sitting on the center line at the top of the 8-foot. Canada still lies 2.
Yeah. Well, we want to stay there, though. Well, the out-turn is built for it if you want to throw it quiet. Just nice bumps. Run straight.
You hear Eddie Lukowich tell John Ferguson to hit that rock and get just a little bit of a roll to the right-hand side. The out-turn is built for it. Look at how straight it runs. It's so nice and quiet. See where he's got the brush placed. Now that runs very straight. What he can't afford, of course, is to come across the face of it and drive it on his own. he hits and stays right there, it's a good shot. Maybe a little bit of a roll, not too much of a roll behind that corner guard.
You have talked in the past, Don Duguid, about the rinks practicing on the same sheet of ice they are curling on. That must be very important to the skip as far as reading ice is concerned.
Oh yeah, you know, years ago we never had that privilege. You just went out on the sheet cold. You didn't know how it run. Oh, look at here.
That's what he did not want to do.
No, that's right, because I'll tell you what, the two were placed perfect in the 4-foot, and it was very difficult to get to him. Now they can freeze to that one and be shot rock. So I think John Ferguson just underthrew this one a bit. He wanted a little bit more weight. But look at it, it's cutting here. And I think that surprises Eddie Lukowich. Like, he thought it would run very straight. Got a bad break, took his own out that was in front of the tee line, and rolled away.
It's something the Canadian team has been doing throughout the week, shooting itself in the foot.
Well, that's right, because they had two perfectly set up in there. One in front of the tee line, one on the edge of the 4-foot. Very tough to get to.
Those are mistakes they were not making at the Briar and Kitchen.
No. No way.
Whoa. Very far, then.
Now Michael Hasselborg attempting to come down to that Canadian stone.
He looks like he's a little bit strong. He's got a curl. Is it going to come onto that one on the 4-foot? No, he's going to go right by it. And he slips to the back, but second shot.
Well, now, what about the strategy for Ed Lukowich?
Well, I think, you know, he has to, he has to look at, he's 3 up. He's got one in the 4-foot. I think that you got to put it right in here. I think you have to ignore this one at the back, even though it's second shot. If he consolidates another one, he's up 4 points, and he's in pretty good shape.
Lukowich, of course, has been one of the dominant curlers for the last 10 years on the Canadian scene. And prior to that, he won a high school championship. Runner-up 1 year and Canadian champion another year.
Don, you notice Lukowich went down the ice. He had a broom in one hand and a brush in the other. Now, he uses the brush to sweep with, but he uses the corn broom to throw with because the straw is a little bit more flexible. You see, it just touches his ice for balance. It's a little bit more flexible. The brush is very rigid. You don't get the little bit of buoyancy there.
Right on. Out. Oh. Out. Oh. Mine. Right back.
They've decided to take it right to the back, Don, as opposed to guarding the rock.
He's going to nudge that stone at the back to become second shot. Canada now lies 3.
That is not the intended shot.
Again, it appears as though he is fooled by the ice. He thought that rock might bend a little more, and the weight has been a problem on all 3 shots that Lukowich has played so far.
Well, that's right. The very first end, Don, he went in too far with his first one, actually went in too far with his second and pulled over more. This particular one here, he was trying to drop it maybe in the top of the 12-foot, and he's well to the back of the 12-foot. Got a little bit of a break by the Swedish rock being back there, but he's just not putting the rock in the right spot. Of course, if you're Hasselborg, you're 3 down. The first rock you went to shoot in the first end, they were lying 3. Here they are lying 3 again. Went down to throw his last rock in the first end, they're lying 4. You hear him just yelling down to Nordine, who holds the broom, saying a little less ice.
36-year-old Stefan Hasselborg, a social worker in his hometown of Sollefteå in Sweden.
Well, he has to get this one in here, and good. He has to be shot rock. He cannot afford to be second shot rock. And once again, it looks like he's a little bit stronger. In fact, he's stronger than Lukowich, I think. They have completely dropped off it.
He's going to miss the shot stone. Will he get that second shot rock? Yes. He'll push it out to become second shot.
So once again, an attempted draw by Hasselborg, fairly heavy. I think now if you're Lukowich, you now come down to that back one to lie 2. Or Ferguson looking to go to the other side. I don't know whether I'd do that, though. I don't think he can touch his own, so I think he's got to play to that one at the back.
Just make sure we flip it out. If we do roll out. No. He does have the shot off the side. Just play it with a nice bump. Make sure we're not tight.
You hear Ed Lukowich say, let's just play it with nice bump, which means bumper weight. He just wants to hit the rock the bumper. You see the ice he's decided to take?
I don't want to guard because he does have the shot off the side for 3. May try it.
When he's talking about the shot off the side for 3, is he talking about a double kill?
Yeah, he's looking at the outturn as you see it right there. You see, he thinks he can hit it maybe on the outside, but I don't think he can get it.
Spot has taken
He'll
off
drive it
in a
on his
couple
own.
of the games. This is close to that center line, and we're currently on the center. Okay. Yeah.
You hear Ed Lukowich talking about the ice, moving in the center line, not moving in the center line, getting out wide, too much weight. You know, this is tricky ice. You have to concentrate. Oh, you hear Lukowich yelling, whoa, easy, easy. He's got a lot of weight. He's going to make contact, but he may drive it on the one at the back.
Why would he have stepped up his weight?
Well, he wanted to play light bumper weight, and I don't know why he stepped it up. You know, he played just a little over draw last time and never curled very much for him. See, Eddie Lukowich was worried about that outturn hit, but I don't think he can get at it. You know, and look at Hasselborg. If he clipped that one out, he may get 2. He may lose his shooter. And that's too tough a shot, so he's just going to draw for 1.
Canada stealing 3 on the opening end. Canada lies 1 on the second end. This World Championship semifinal. The other semifinal, all even after 2 ends of play. Scotland, David Smith, unbeaten in round-robin play against Steve Brown of the United States.
Here's Stefan Hasselborg, yell down to Hans Nordine, a little bit more ice. Of course, the danger of going a little bit wider, Don, not too many rocks have been played down there, might be a little bit heavier. Especially when he threw his first one, he's a little bit heavy. Once again, he looks a little bit strong. Now it's starting to dig in a bit. Now it's going to pull over far enough. Oh, he looks a little bit strong again.
Another steal for Canada. As Canada, with that yellow stone on the edge of the forefoot, on consecutive ends, steals 3 and then 1 to move into a 4-0 lead after 2 ends of play. And definite problems facing Swedish skip Stefan Hasselborg here at the CNE Coliseum. Right now, though, let's go to our Sports Weekend studio. This action in the game between Scotland and the United States. Scotland's David Smith picked up a single point on the first end. Steve Brown of the U.S. with the final stone of end number 2. Last night, in the tiebreaker, he scored a 7-1 win over the 1981 world champion Jörg Tanner of Switzerland. This was Steve Brown's final delivery of end number 2. And he comes down to that shot stone, removing it cleanly. The shooter remains in the forefoot, and it's all even after 2 ends of play. The U.S. won and Scotland won. Alfie Phillips is standing by, and Alfie, you're very involved as a committee member for this year's Silver Broom. You have some thoughts, though, going back to 1967, I'm sure.
Well, it seems like a long time ago, and it is. It's almost 20 years, but the game's come a long way, especially in World Championship play, since we played.
What about the competition this week?
Well, the competition has been really good. I think the ice has caused the Canadian team a bit of a problem. They had trouble playing their fine game, and although they seem to have some of that sorted out today.
Alfie, is the ice really running very straight, and that's why the Canadians changed?
Well, I think that's true. I think they love to come around, and it's very difficult all this week to come around the corners. It always seems that you're leaving half of it open.
Alf, as a member of the committee, have you been pleased with the response of Torontonians to this year's Silver Broom?
Yes, it's a first, as we all know, for Toronto, and I think it's great for Toronto and curling here, and I think this is an excellent facility for not only the Silver Broom, but possibly later a Brier.
Well, the fans have certainly been comfortable in this facility. Alf, you've done a fine job here. Thanks very much for chatting with us, and I'm sure you're keeping your fingers crossed just a wee bit that Lukowich will advance to that final tomorrow.
I would say so, and thank you very much.
Alf Phillips, the 1967 Canadian champion. a member of the Silver Broom Committee here in Toronto. And Canada, to the delight of the near capacity crowd, is in front by a score of 4-0, and Canada has the shot stone again sitting on the edge of the 4-foot and again covered by 2 stones out front.
Well, that's right. Hasselborg is really struggling with his draw weight down. He hasn't been very close at all. He had one draw down there, ran fairly straight. He was back of the rings, punched a rock out. With his second one, he was about the same weight, so he is really struggling. You know, you should be fairly close on your second one, but to miss it, and he missed it by a good 6-7 feet.
Well, we mentioned that John Ferguson was with Paul Gausel in 1978 when he won a World Junior Championship. In 1976, Neil Houston was with the same Paul Gausel when he won his first World Junior Championship. Obviously, he was with Paul Gausel the previous year when they won the Canadian Junior Men's title.
Well, I've always been a Neil Houston, John Ferguson fan. I've seen them curl a good many games over their years, and they've just got great curling deliveries, Don, but they're just excellent curlers.
And Neil Houston's mother is here taking in the action. She said, "I may be the most rabid curling fan in this building." She has a vested interest, of course.
Well, it's always tougher watching, you know. I mean, I'm sure his mother's done her share of pacing this week. You know, I talked to Judy Lukowich during the week, and Canada was playing a little spotty, and she was really concerned. And she's a very good curler herself. You know, she follows the cash spiel and has played Maryland Dart, as a matter of fact. And she was really concerned for the Canadian team.
You're, of course, referring to Ed Lukowich's wife, Judy, and I think they have participated together in some mixed competitions in the past. But very definitely the Swedish rink has its work cut out for it. This may help get them out of that jackpot a little, though. Oh, no, not enough to nudge it back out of the ring. Those 2 stones still covering up that shot rock of Canada in the 4-foot.
Well, they're jamming up the 4-foot, which is good for Sweden, Don. They have to get a lot of rocks in play. Eddie Lukowich has picked out a kind of dangerous shot here, because if Houston hits that a little bit on the nose, Sweden will be lying too. What he's hoping for, of course, is Houston to come down and hit it about 3/4 of a rock on the outside, and he'll spill them both.
Since winning the Brier in Kitchener, the rink has had a few practice games. Lukowich and Ferguson were involved in a bonspiel in Medicine Hat, but they really haven't done much prior to coming to Toronto. The shooter rolls out. One of the Swedish stones is removed. Canada still lies 1.
That rock ran very straight down there, Don, and Lukowich is quite happy. He's still lying shot rock, and Hasselborg, of course, trying to get back in this game, will now try to raise his one up and maybe freeze to that Canadian rock, as he's indicating there. He wants to get a couple together so that maybe Lukowich's team will drive it on, and he has to remain patient. He wants to score 2 here. He certainly can't afford Canada to score another point.
In your book on curling strategy, what would you advise a skip who finds himself in this predicament, trailing 4-0 after 2 ends?
Well, you know, you might as well lose by 15 as 9-8. So you might as well put all the stops, do all the freezing, throw up guards if you score a point, and do everything possible to get back in the game. You know, as long as he keeps the rocks in play, and look, there's a good shot. Now we get a little bit of a break. Maybe if Canada hits it wrong, they'll end up lying too. But they got to keep promoting the rocks, freezing to them, throwing up guards.
What about the problem, though, of that shot stone, that yellow-handled Canadian rock?
Doesn't make any difference. He just got to hope that Canada hits one wrong. He doesn't care who shot. He needs more than 1 point now. So that's why he's just tapping them up. He's got to hope that Canada, of course, doesn't make the double here. Canada makes the double, there's a good chance they'll be lying too. Then I still think you pursue the freezing. Freeze that rock on the corner of the 4-foot.
So in other words, this one could be over early if that strategy doesn't work for Hasselborg.
Yes. I mean, if Hasselborg is going to keep on missing those shots, Don, it could be over very early. There's one thing about doing a lot of gambling, you have to make your shots. Because what you're hoping is maybe a couple of half shots out of Canada, and you're going to get 2. You know, 4-2 is not bad. You're playing the 4th end.
John Ferguson with his first delivery, and from our low-level camera, you see how Ferguson slides out and intently watches the progress of that rock as it comes down to those 2 red stones. He'll get just 1, and the shooter will also roll out of play. He was hoping to kill both those red-handled rocks.
Well, he was very close to taking out his own or chipping it out into the open.
And that's the half miss you were talking about.
That's the half shot that you're looking for. See, now for Hasselborg now, he'll just maybe touch this one on the right-hand side, move it into that one that's in the side of the forefoot belonging to Canada, and let his shooter roll over. Now he's got two in play. Canada may hit the open one. Okay, maybe roll out, then he'll get his two that way.
And Hasselborg, as he has had throughout this entire match, will have last rock on the third end. A steal of 3 on the first for Canada, a steal of 1 more on the second. And the reaction from the crowd for a shot in the other semifinal game between Scotland and the U.S. And as this Canada-Swedish match progresses, we will be showing some of the key shots from that other game to you. We already provided a look at the final stone takeout by Steve Brown in the second end that tied the game at 1-1. The winner of this Canada-Sweden game will, of course, face the winner of that Scotland-USA match for the 1986 World Championship. Michael Hasselborg's first delivery, and he is just going to get in across the hog line. Those corn brooms pounding the ice, and we kind of enjoy that sound that we don't hear often enough anymore in major curling competition.
Give me the nice rhythm and the two good sweepers. Well, that's not a bad shot, you know, for Sweden. It's not exactly what they wanted. He wanted to touch it back, and obviously either that rock picked up something or it just deliberately threw it light. But see, it's a danger rock for Lukowich, because if they come around and tap it off, tap that one back in the top of the forefoot, they're going to be lying 2 behind the guard. So that's a danger shot for Lukowich, so he wants to run it off.
The Canadian champions curling out of the Calgary Winter Club.
Ferguson down at this end, Don. Maybe he wants to draw in and maybe try and pick that one out, but I don't know. The danger shot is that one rock that's over the hog line. I mean, if Ferguson chips that one out and rolls the shooter away, they'll just draw around that center guard. That's the bad rock.
Clean. Yeah. Hurry. Hurry. Hurry.
That's what he wanted to do. Peel that Swedish stone and roll the shooter out of play as well. During the week, there has been some discussion among members of that Canadian rink as to the strategy they have employed.
Well, you know, as we said at the top of the show, they tried to play the come-around game early, like with the leads rock, seconds rock. And the other teams were making good hits and rolls and got themselves in all kinds of trouble. You know, maybe if he had waited till Ferguson's last rock to start gambling around corner guards, it might have been better for him. But it never paid off for him all week, so they decided to go to the straight takeout game.
A couple of times, I think Neil Houston was quite outspoken as to how the game should have been approached.
Well, he's got a 25% interest in this game and the outcome, so he's entitled to say something.
Michael Hasselborg was light with his first attempt. This time he just rolls off the stone, and Sweden lies 1. John Ferguson taking a look to see if maybe they lie 2.
No, Canada's lying second shot.
Is that what he was attempting with his first stone?
That's exactly right. As you notice there with his last one, Don, they didn't sweep it all the way down the ice. Like, he was fairly
Fine,
heavy.
even if we sit there and he makes the double, it's going to be pretty well a double for us.
You hear what he's saying? Now, they hit this one on the nose. Then if Sweden makes the double, the rocks will be close together and allow Ed Lukowich to play a double. And that's what he's referring to, because they're playing in a very confined area there, all in the forefoot.
Well, that's why you were so successful in your 2 Silver Broom championships, and why Ed Lukowich has been one of the country's most successful curlers over the year. He's always 2 or 3 shots ahead.
Exactly. You have to be planning ahead. You hear him yelling, lots of weight.
Oh, easy. Right up.
See, with a little bit of weight, how that rock hugs that line. Pretty good shot.
Canada lies 2.
Well, for Hasselborg, he can come down here. If he wants to score 2 points, he can make contact with this rock, drive it on there, and hope that his shooter rolls over here and make contact, and that way he'll be lying 2. But like Lukowich said, if he does make that shot, there'll still be 2 Swedish rocks fairly close together, and they'll have a shot at the double. That's why they're looking at the alternative, maybe, Don, to hitting that one on the left-hand side there and rolling in behind cover to be shot rock. This way they may get 3.
And thinking about, with his final stone, raising that red rock onto the yellow rock.
Exactly, and that's how he'll get up 3. But for him to score 3, he's going to have to be shot rock in this one if he hits and rolls.
The Swedish rink forced to pull out all stops here on this third end. They trail by a score of 4-0 after having 3 stolen on the first and another stolen on the second.
Det är bara att rulla in bakom den röda, har vi en chans.
Hasselborg's delivery not nearly as steady as his counterpart on the Canadian squad, Ed Lukowich.
Well, he goes up on his toe a bit, you know, Don, and he loses his balance a little bit.
There's the hit, there's that roll, and now Sweden lies too. Excellent shot by Hasselborg as he gets the roll and nudges out that other Canadian stone to lie 2. Nothing. Canada leads Sweden. 2 rocks remaining on the third end.
Well, for Lukowich, you know, Don, it's going to be very difficult to punch these one out because he may drive this one over here and leave Sweden a free draw for 2. To squirt those 2 out, it's going to be very difficult without taking that one on the right-hand side out.
That was an excellent shot by Hasselborg.
Oh, a great shot. A great shot. Remember what I said early in the end. Just freeze to them. Maybe Canada will make a mistake. And you have to do that. You have to play 1-2 shots ahead, freeze to them, hope that Canada makes a half a shot, and get out of this end. Maybe score 2 points.
1, 3, clean, clean, whoa, whoa. No, right up.
Ed Lukowich with his final shot of this end. He will not get 2. Sweden lies 1, and now an opportunity to get right back in the game with the final stone by Stefan Hasselborg.
The only thing for Stefan Hasselborg, he hasn't been too great with his draws. Don, he's got to just catch a piece of the 4-foot. He's throwing a draw down there.
Ja, det ska inte vara något problem. Ta den.
And I think perhaps because of some of the knee problems that Hans Nordine has had this week, he is going to hold the broom or the brush for Stefan Hasselborg, and third Michael Hasselborg and lead Lars Wernbloom will sweep this final offering of Stefan Hasselborg on end number 3.
Well, he doesn't have to bite the 4-foot or just touch the red part. He can be, you see the rock on the left-hand side? That's the one that he has to outdraw. So if he's just about a 1/4 of an inch from the red rings, he'll get 2.
Jag får gå ner ytterligare från förra dragningen.
Canadian champion Ed Lukowich, the 1978 and 86 Canadian champion. He lost in the semifinal of the World Championship in '78. He would like to erase those memories from his mind with a victory this afternoon and a berth in the championship game tomorrow afternoon here at the CNE Coliseum.
It's a big draw for him. Look at them. They're all out there. He has to catch that 4-foot. And it's important that he score more than 1. He played the whole end to get 2, and he's going to pull up short. And Don, I remarked about his draw weight. He is really struggling.
On the previous end, he was a little heavy, and on this end, he comes up light with his final attempt. So after 3 ends of play, Canada leads this semifinal battle by 3. The battle between Scotland and the United States. This was the final delivery of end number 3 by David Smith, the Scottish skip. No stones in the rings. Now he is trying to split a stone sitting just out front and roll it in and get 2, and watch what happens.
Great sweeping by the front end, and look at this. And then he's been doing this all week. Chipped and rolled it. His shooter rolls to the right-hand side. A big 2 points for David Smith.
So Scotland has jumped ahead of the United States by a score of 3-1. Canada leading Sweden by a score of 4-1. There are many people who had predicted a Canada-Scotland battle for this 86 Silver Broom, and perhaps that will come about.
Well, all indications are that it looks like it's going to happen, Don, but you have to feel really sorry for Stefan Hasselborg. I have never seen him lose his draw weight like he has in his first 3 ends. You know, the second end, he absolutely fired a couple down right through the back of the rings, and this time he pulls up a good 12 feet short. So, Don, there's a discrepancy of about 21 feet in his draw weight, and that's not good. When you start struggling with your draw weight, you are in a lot of trouble. And here he's going gambling. He's down 4-1. He has to gamble. He has to throw the rocks out in front, hope that Canada hits him on the nose, and they steal a point. Now they have to start worrying about stealing points on this end. If they had scored 2, they might have just played it simple and wide open. But now that they only scored 1, they have to gamble.
The stone in the rings belonging to Canada. It's in the 12-foot. You talked about Hasselborg's strategy. How does Lukowich play now that he has last rock?
Well, he's going to play it simple and wide open. He's got 1 on the quarter, the 12-foot there. He's going to play it wide open. If he blanks this end or scores 1, he's just worried about the ends now. He's worried about when Hasselborg has last rock. He cannot afford to give him more than 1.
Clean.
Canadian lead, Brent Syme.
Got Brent. Well done.
Removing that Swedish stone, and the shooter rolls out as well.
And I'm sure the Canadian team is feeling very good now, Don, because they really struggled. And at one point in the competition, were actually booed by some of the fans here. You know, and Lukowich missed a rock playing a takeout right in the center line, right on top of the 12-foot, and you never see Ed Lukowich do that. So the people were getting on his case a bit, but any time that you're struggling in curling, you're in a lot of trouble, and he struggled.
Well, expectations so great when you're playing before your home crowd, so to speak.
That's exactly what he said, you know. We were in that same situation in Winnipeg. Everybody said, oh, well, you have the advantage being in front of your hometown fans. But let me tell you, you maybe have the advantage if you're winning, but when you're losing, everybody says, well, he's really not curling great. He's skipping a bad game, and the other guys aren't curling good. They can see with their own eyes how bad you're playing. So it's really not an advantage.
I remember that 1970 Brier you referred to so very well. 10,000 spectators inside that building in Winnipeg, and all of them, of course, with their eyes focused on the game involving the Manitoba rink, which you were skipping, and in those days it was straight round-robin play, and that final game was the key one for you to win the championship.
Yeah.
Well, that's the nice part about curling now. No longer it's round-robin play, but the top 4 teams make the playoffs, and to me, that's great. You know, you can lose a couple of games and you're not out of it. Years ago, if you lost your first 2 out of 3, you were pretty well out of the competition.
But a lot of people, I think, probably forgot this week as well, is that last year, Al Hackner had a 6-3 record and won the World Championship. So Lukowich has an identical 6-3 record, and the first objective of any rink coming into this event is to qualify for the playoffs, and that's what Lukowich did.
Well, exactly, but I think what they're really concerned about, he lost to really a team that is not going to win the Silver Broom, and that's, of course, Italy. He's really struggled against France. You know, Jörg Tanner from Switzerland is a real good curler, former world champion. You can expect a good game out of him, but Italy and France, you're expected to beat those 2 countries.
And again, Lukowich will move out and call for the removal of that Swedish stone that is straddling the center line, just a couple of feet outside the rings. Neil Houston, the 29-year-old Canadian second.
Hurry! Hurry! Only hard.
They don't want to hit this one on the nose. They want to make sure they run their rocks off.
Mission accomplished.
Yep. Perfect shot. And Don Hasselborg will keep up this pursuit for the whole end, trying to get one on the center line, hoping that Canada will hit on the nose and draw around it and try to steal a point. He has to do a lot of gambling now. Maybe if with his last rock, if he isn't successful in getting one on the front, he'll run that one off, so maybe Canada will blank the end and go on to the next end.
Michael Hasselborg attempting to place that guard with his first stone of this 4th end, and he too appears to be having some problems with his weight as he quickly got it up out of the hack and out of his slide position to move down the ice and provide some sweeping assistance. We said that we are going to keep you updated on the game between Scotland and the U.S., and we have shown you a couple of key shots in that game. The fourth end was blank. Steve Brown, with last rock, was able to remove the Scottish stone and roll out to retain last rock advantage into end number 5. They are a little ahead of this other semifinal game between Canada and Sweden, but that's understandable because in this game there have been more rocks in play than in the other match.
Well, the first end took a lot longer to play than normal because there was a lot of rocks in play, and of course Hasselborg, having last rock, was really confronted with a lot of problems in that first end.
John Ferguson will go after that stone, just delivered by Michael Hasselborg. He'll be attempting to roll the shooter out as well. One stone in the rings belonging to Canada, and again Ferguson peels.
Now, a lot of viewers might say, well, why didn't Lukowich draw around that one? He's up 4-1. He could have got 2, gone up 6-1. I think in this case you have to look at the opposition. You're up 4-1. You have the advantage of last rock. The ice is running very straight, and I think Lukowich has really got enough points to win this game. Like, I don't think Sweden's going to score any more than 1 on any given end because the ice is very straight.
That's one of the problems with straight ice. It doesn't provide the exciting shot making that we have witnessed at some other events.
Well, what it does, if you're a little bit inside the broom or quite a bit inside the broom with good sweeping, it stays straight, so you get a piece of the rock all the time. Look at here. They have to get this one over. And they just get it over. It looked to me like he was going to hog that for a minute. So Hasselborg is really struggling. Now, Lukowich, what do you do? See where that rock is?
I think we just draw over here.
He has 1 stone in the rings, and now for John Ferguson, he wants another one in there.
Well, the reason he's going in there now, Don, because Sweden's only got 2 rocks left, okay? So now he puts it over on the edge of the 4-foot. What does Hasselborg do? Well, he may have to hit it or try and hit and roll behind cover. He certainly can't draw around that one because he wouldn't be shot rock. That's why he's going in with John Ferguson's last rock. He's going to put it on the edge of the 4-foot and say, okay, you want to throw up another guard? I may come in and go around your center guard. We'll be lying 3. The most you're going to get is 1 anyway. So that's why he's doing it. But he has to make sure that this rock is on the edge of the 4-foot. He cannot afford to slip to the back of the 12-foot or stay on top of the 12-foot. Then they'll go around that guard.
Okay.
If he's in the 12-foot anywhere.
Come on.
See him yelling, come on, get it in. See, even Lukowich is up there. He doesn't want it on top of the 12-foot. If it's on top of the 12-foot, he'll draw around. Hasselborg will draw around it. Pretty good position.
Well, the full house at the Coliseum likes it. Canada lies 2. Canada leads by a score of 4-1. In case you've just joined us, the first end, very critical in this game. Canada was able to steal 3. Stefan Hasselborg, the Swedish skip, when he threw his final stone, was looking at 4 Canadian rocks. 3 of them in the 4-foot, 1 in the 8-foot. He was able to remove just the stone in the 8-foot.
Well, Hasselberg's painted himself in a real corner here, Don, by dropping his third man's last rock out in front. And Lukowich going in has really caused some problems now. And that was the danger of throwing his third man's last rock just a foot over the hog line. Lukowich ignores it, goes the other side, now they're lying 2. Hasselberg's got to hit that one. Because if he draws over in around the guard on the left-hand side, he won't be shot rock. Lukowich is just delighted to score 2 here with last rock. Be up 6-1.
He's in an ideal position with last rock to get more than 1.
And even if Hasselborg steals 1, he's still 4-2 playing the 5th end. Not bad. I'll tell you. See the importance of that rock being in close to the 4-foot? I mean, if it was on the 12-foot, he wouldn't hit it. Being in the 4-foot, he has to hit it.
A nose hit. Sweden now lies 1. On this 4th end, the first time in this game that Canada has had last rock advantage.
You want to throw normal, take a hair last.
I think one of the reasons that Ed Lukowich has both a brush and a broom, he has to get the straw to put in his mouth off that broom that he carries with him.
You could be right. You could be right. This is an important shot for Lukowich. He certainly doesn't want to hit and roll out and lose his advantage here, because if he hits and rolls out, for sure, Hasselborg will draw around that guard just off the center line. So it's important that Lukowich maybe hits and rolls maybe a foot a little close to the center, not too far, to allow maybe Hasselborg to hit and roll behind the guard. Hitting it right on the nose is a good shot.
Easy, clean. Oh, up.
It's floating out on him. Look at it. Look at it go. He threw a little bit more weight than Hasselborg.
He's going to lose his shooter. Canada still lies one. But as you said on the last end, Hasselborg a little concerned about his draw weight.
Well, I think that's why he's going to hit this one. I think he said, well, look, we just dodged another bullet, because if Lukowich hits and stays there, they're lying 2. We're down 6-1. We're going to get out of this end. Let's hit this one and go on to the next one.
That must be an uncomfortable feeling for a skip when you're not certain of your draw weight.
Oh, let me tell you. It is very difficult, because, you know, you're trying to finesse the rock, get the rocks in position so that you can get back in this game. If you don't have draw weight, you cannot do it.
One of the dangers here for Hasselborg as well was that rock sitting on the edge of the 12. If he doesn't get a nose hit and rolls out, Lukowich will simply blank the end.
But I think Hasselborg would be quite delighted to get out of this end with a blank, because he made a bad strategy error by asking his third man to drop it out in front.
Two rocks remain on this fourth end. This is the final stone from Swedish skip Stefan Hasselborg.
Boy, they got to hurry this one. It is starting to take off on him. Has he got it? Oh, just got a piece of it. And he is very dejected. He is not sure what is going on out there.
Hasselborg has struggled since the outset. Of course, he did not have easy shots on the very first end. He was in trouble to start with, and that can be unsettling.
Oh, yeah, you always want to get off to a good start, and he's really struggling, Don, with his draw, not only with his draw weight, but with ice. How much ice to take to make contact with the rock.
And while Lukowich will simply be throwing this through, he'll be watching the progress of the rock to see how it reacts.
Well, that's right. You just don't purposely throw it through. You pick a spot in the ice you haven't thrown it, throw it through, and see how it reacts in that spot.
So Ed Lukowich with the last stone of end number 4 blanks the end, and the score holds. Canada 4, Sweden 1 after 4.
Here and there.
Hurry!
He's really hummed this one.
Hurry! Whoa, whoa, whoa!
He'll get them both.
Well, pretty good shot by Houston. If you were a scorer, what would you give him?
I'd give him 4.
I'd give him 3.
Because the shooter stayed out front.
Exactly right. See, and not only that, it's a little closer to the center line now. Now Hasselborg can draw around it, be closer to the 4 foot.
I'd still give him 4.
Ah.
25-year-old Hans Nordine, the Swedish second, with the outturn draw, trying to get in behind. That stone just delivered by Neil Houston. Will they sneak it by? No, he rubs out front. But the stone continues on into the ring. Sweden lies 1.
Well, they're just not quite clicking, Don, because you know the game, as you know, the game is a game of inches. Unfortunately, just rubbed that rock and rolled into the open. If they get by, it's perfect in the 4 foot. But now it's simply a wide open hit for Canada, so things are really not going well for Sweden this game.
Regular.
Well, they didn't go well for Sweden last year in the Silver Broom final in Glasgow, won by Al Hackner, nor in 1983 in the semifinal when Hasselborg lost to Ed Werenek, who went on to the Canadian Championship in '83. Our curling fans in Regina will recall that in that championship game, Ed Werenek was a winner as he defeated Keith Wendorf of Germany by a score of 7-4. And Keith Wendorf is here this week. He's one of the officials.
He is that.
Bit of controversy over in Germany regarding the status of Keith Wendorf with regard to funding of the German curling program for Olympic competition.
Well, he's an excellent curler. You know, he almost wins that German championship every year. Oh, a nice little roll by Sweden. In behind the corner guard, Don, but still just in the 12-foot.
They're playing the sixth end in the other semifinal. Successive blank ends as Steve Brown, with last rock advantage, has been able to hit and roll out. And it's a 3-1 game. Scotland leading the United States.
Don, I just happened to look over that they're playing the sixth end. The score is 3-1 for Scotland. The very first end, Scotland threw it through. The very first rock of the sixth end. That's how much confidence they're playing with. They know they can peel off every rock, and USA is not going to get back in the game. They're only 2 up. They're throwing the very first rock, the sixth end, through the rings. I can't believe that. Oh, look at this good shot.
Raised, nose hit, Canada lies one behind cover.
When you're hot, you're hot. A great shot by Ferguson.
Well, John Ferguson, who struggled earlier in the week in some of the round-robin play, gets back the form that helped this Canadian rink win the Brier.
Well, you know, he's making about a 12-foot angle raise, and he makes it absolutely perfect. The rock is in the house, biting the 12-foot. He's got a guard on it. But that's just an excellent shot by John Ferguson. You know, Sweden still got a chance to get in around that corner guard, but now it's a little bit more dangerous for them, because if they don't make it right, Canada's going to score 2 here. Well, you know, those kind of shots put a lot of pressure on the other team. You know, they get a little discouraged when you're down 3 points. They make an angle raise takeout. Look at this rock, looks a little bit strong, and look how much he misses the guard by. I mean, if you're going to get back in this game, you got to miss that guard by an inch or so.
Well, Sweden does have the shot stone, but it is accessible for the Canadian team.
All the way. Yeah, just nice even hack.
I talked about John Ferguson
Come a little.
reverting to his Brier form. 90% in this game as opposed to 59% for Swedish third Michael Hasselborg. And those statistics tell you why Canada is in front by a score of 4-1.
Oh, 90%. When you're second and third are curling in the 90s, you're in for a very difficult day. You know, at one point you might say, well, look, here's the keys. I'm leaving. Let me out of this place, because 90% is tremendous shooting. And this is a shot you want to make, Don. You're up 4-1. You got a chance to lie 2. You'd like to hit this rock and roll a little bit into the open. And that way maybe force Sweden to try to get in around that guard again. If they don't make it perfect, you're going to get maybe 3 points this end, and then the game's all over.
Well, John Ferguson, a chartered accountant, like Canadian lead, Brent Syme. I don't think John would object if we mentioned that he works for Thorne Riddell back in Calgary.
Oh, he just had to hit it a fraction thicker, and he would have stuck in the back 12, it would have been a perfect shot. Now, Stefan Hasselborg.
I'm sure still thinking about the draws that he has had problems with.
Well, he's really struggled with his draw weight. And Don, you know, when you're down 4-1, you have to put the rock in the right position. And he's going to try to sneak it in around that corner guard, but in front of the tee line.
His delivery not nearly as smooth as Lukowich, for example.
Well, he goes up on his toe, that's why, Don, and his balance is mostly forward, so he's really not as smooth coming out. Look, here's another draw. Is he going to stop in time this time? He's got beautiful line. Now he's got nice weight. See? Once again, at least he's closer to the 4-foot this time than he has been all game, but he's still behind that tee line.
34% for Stefan Hasselborg.
There.
That's why he trails 4-1. 60% for Ed Lukowich.
Let me tell you, the two combined scores are about the equal of Neil Houston. 60% isn't all that great for Eddie. 34% is brutal.
Somebody get a time there? Okay.
Anybody get a
Same
time
way
there?
she had.
That's what he's saying. Let me tell you, if you're a lead or second and your skip says that to you and you say, oh yeah, it's about 24 seconds, and you throw what you think is 24 seconds, which is fairly fast ice, and it gets 1.5 feet over the hog line, you turn around, you glare at your front end. So if you're the front end, if you're not sure, don't say anything. But if you're fairly definite on how keen it is, let your skip know.
That's the point in the match where curling could become a body contact game.
Exactly.
Just clean.
That's why leads are never good skips.
Right up. No, right up.
Oh, he's a little bit strong.
No, right up.
Now it's starting to come over. He may touch it, or very close to it.
Yeah.
No, just that much heavy. Factoring weight.
Well, now Sweden has an opportunity to perhaps steal.
Well, for Stefan Hasselborg, he wants to pull that rock down right in about here, and he wouldn't be too upset if it was in a little bit tighter. He doesn't want the rock to sit out here where Lukowich can get at it and make a simple wide open hit. He wants to make sure he ducks it in around cover and force Lukowich to draw, especially with Lukowich's last attempt. He's a little bit strong.
Well, Stefan Hasselborg curling at 34% in this game. Earlier in the week, Ed Lukowich made a couple of comments that he was really having difficulty with his game. And at 60%, he isn't exactly setting the world on fire. His percentage will have dropped after that last draw attempt.
Oh, yes. He's, you know, he's had fairly simple shots. It hasn't been as tough for him as it has been for Hasselborg. You know, there's where a point where you have to get the rock at least in front of that red run. Make a full draw to the 4 foot. At least make the other guy make a pass at it. You know, here it is. You know, if you're in front of it, what does Hasselborg do? He has to make a play on it. He may roll in the open. You'll have a wide open hit. But now, if Hasselborg gets his rock in, Lukowich's next shot is really going to be difficult for him.
Oh, he's got a good-looking shot. A beauty. A situation somewhat similar to the first end that faced Hasselborg. Lukowich is now looking at 2 stones behind cover on the edge of the 4.
Well, the nice thing for Lukowich, he knows that he threw the rock just through the ring. So if he takes off, he can take off 9 feet because the guy's never swept it all the way. If he takes off 9 feet, the guy's brush it all the way. He should be able to pull it in the 4 foot, and it should curl a bit for him at the end.
There's always been that discussion in the game of curling. How far can sweepers take a rock?
Well, 2 good brushers or 2 good people with the broom can take the rock 15 to 21 feet further, depending on certain ice conditions. You know, whether you're on the outside of the sheet, you know, not in the center where it's a little bit stickier, you maybe take it 15 feet. Down the center where it's really fast, you can take it 21 feet.
So in a situation like this, do you throw the stone to the sweepers?
Oh, yeah. Once Lukowich, he'll make a guess on how keen it is. Now watch the sweepers. They'll judge how fast it's going. And they'll adjust their sweeping, whether he's light or whether he's heavy. See, now look at, they're letting up now. They know he's a little bit strong. Now they got to hope it's good. Now look at them going. Now they're making another judgment. He may just about be right. You know he's going to be very close. Now look at him. See, now they're judge that rock all the way down. Look at that. Perfect shot.
Under pressure, Ed Lukowich comes through with the final stone of end number 5. And facing 2 Swedish stones, Lukowich draws down to them, and Canada leads Sweden in this Silver Broom semifinal by a score of 5-1. Shot you faced with your last stone of the 5th.
Well, he really made 2 good shots. It seems that Stefan has finally found his draw weight and made a couple of great shots. The one path there where I went heavy on with the first one has been about the keenest it's been for about the last 5 days, and we've been a lot of times this week light on draws, and you know, we're trying to make sure we're there, and that one was very keen. We kind of misread the weight on it, and yet the other side there's been a few hog rocks, so it's very tricky for weight.
Has it changed, Eddie, since the first of the week? Are you saying there's different runs in it today than there was during the week?
Well, I think that one spot there is just a particularly quick spot today. The rest of the sheet isn't really that fast. It's more like it has been the rest of the week. It's really good hitting ice, very tricky for draws, and also getting the correct ice for your draws. Like we've thrown a lot of, and they've thrown a lot of draws down that path there, and a lot of times sat opened or racked in the guard. There's just a little bit of fine ice there that you have to get exactly the right amount of ice.
Ed, I'm sure you must have been somewhat relieved when you were able to steal 3 and jump into that first end lead, something you haven't been able to do too often during the week.
No, we haven't done that for a long time.
Eddie, continued good luck over the final 5 ends of this match.
Right, thank you.
Perhaps for the Swedish rink.
Yes, a disaster perhaps, but we decided that when we should play against Canada, we have to take all chances. So we play very aggressive and tough from the beginning, and we have a good start of them, but the finish was not so good, as you could see.
Over the next 5 ends, how will you approach the game now? What will you have to try and do?
It's only one way of tactic. We have to play aggressive curling the rest of the game if we should have a chance to get back.
How about the ice here at the CNE Coliseum? Does it favor perhaps a hitting game more than the draw game?
No, I don't think so. The ice condition is perfect, especially on this game. It hasn't been as good as it is today, some of the games during the week, but it's perfect today.
Michael, thank you very much for talking with us. Good luck over the final 5 ends of the semifinal battle. Bringing up their average, David was a member of David Aitken's World Junior Championship rink, and if Scotland should win this year's men's championship, he could be the first in the same year to win both a Uniroyal and a Silver Broom. And Canada now leading by 4, playing end number 6, has decided to fire them through. Well, one of our affiliates out in Manitoba, CKX in Brandon, picking up the action from the CNE Coliseum. Yes, indeed. Look who's here again. It seems to be a familiar story in curling championships to see Cool Hand Luke competing. He has, over the past 10 years, played in 4 Briars, and this is his 2nd Silver Broom.
Boy, that rock glides a long way, because halfway down it looked like the Swedish Lars Wernbloom on it really hogged that rock, and it just kept on going. And that's attributed to good sweeping, of course, by the front end, and the fact that the ice is very keen. And there you see it well off the center line. And Sweden will do that. They'll throw up a lot of corner guards, hoping that Canada hits and rolls anywhere in front of those rings so they can draw around it.
Yeah.
You know, when I was curling, I hated playing this type of game, running everything. It was too defensive a type of game.
Brent Syme peels that Swedish stone, so Stefan Hasselborg will try again. Did you know, Don Duguid, that curling in Sweden started in 1864 when a Scotsman by the name of Willie Andrew McPhee settled down to do business with the Swedes. He also brought curling equipment with him to his new hometown. And in 1852, he founded the very first curling club in Europe outside Great Britain.
I didn't know that.
That's the Bohuslanska Curling Klubben.
Ah, yes.
Again, Canada will attempt the removal of that stone belonging to the Swedes. He calls upon Neil Houston. Look at the list of accomplishments for Neil Houston. The 1975 Canadian Junior Championship, 76 World Championship in 1980. He was at the Briar playing 3rd for Paul Gausel. In 83, he played 2nd for Ed Lukowich at the Briar. In 84, he was 2nd for Lukowich at the Briar. In 86, 2nd for Lukowich and a Briar champion.
He's had a great career, and you know, you just have to watch him throw the rock. Him and Ferguson and Syme and Ed Lukowich, you know, they dedicate a lot of time to perfecting their curling deliveries and pursuing their dream, of course, winning the World Championship. And they're just great throwers of the rock. You know, Don, we didn't tell our viewers, by the virtue of Scotland going undefeated all week, they have last rock in the semifinals and the finals automatically. There will be no traditional tossing of the coin for last rock. tomorrow if Scotland gets in the final.
At one time in World Championship play, the rink that went undefeated automatically got a berth in the final.
Right. Now they've changed.
I think the last time we saw that was in 1980 when Rick Folk of Saskatoon won the World Championship.
I think you're correct. You know, and that's a tremendous advantage on this ice, having last rock first in.
Didn't prove that for
Hasselborg.
Hasselborg, however.
Better he showed up 10 minutes late. They would have penalized him just 1 point.
Again, Canada feels that Swedish stone. Ed Lukowich leading by 4, playing this 6th hand, now trying to keep everything clean.
You know, the surprising thing about this week's performance by all teams, Don, that only about 25% of the curlers had an average of over 75%. Now, that's not very good curling.
Well, there are curlers who may claim they are not superstitious, but on what you said about the red-handled stones against the yellow-handled stones at the start of our telecast, I think the rink that has those yellow-handled stones in their grasp may feel just a little more confident.
Oh, I would agree with that. Curlers are superstitious. Look at Lukowich looking at the rock to make. That rock has to be completely over that line. There you see from this angle it looks like it's over, but the rock being, of course, round in the writing edge, that lighter part, that lighter band is what they call the striking edge of the rock. That hits the same striking rock edge on another rock. If you look over top of that, it's very close to being on that line. It has to be completely across that line to be in play. But now if Ferguson hits this one on the nose and his rock stays on the line, it stays in play because it made contact with a rock that was in play.
Well, we don't have to worry about that because that's what John Ferguson wanted to do. He wanted to feel that stone and roll out, and he did.
He actually didn't crush that one, did he? Pushed it all across and just hit the boards on the right-hand side.
The yellow-handled stones have won, as you said at the start, many more games than the red. Do you recall the exact figures?
The Yellow Rocks won 31 of the games, Don, out of 49. But if you look over on the other sheet, Scotland's got red rocks, and they're ahead 3-1. So it may be an even split here today.
I remember a few years ago in our CBC Curling Classic, another Swedish skip and a former world champion who, by the way, started at the same curling club that the Hasselborg rink is from, the Sollefteå Curling Club, and that is Ragnar Kemp, felt that the yellow-handled stones were a jinx. And before he even stepped onto the ice, if he had the yellow-handled stones, he thought he was a loser. And he did, in fact, lose. He perhaps psyched himself right out.
Curlers are superstitious, you know. They really are. You know, they go to the same way to the dressing room. They sit in the same part of the dressing room. Put on the right sock first. You know, they are superstitious.
Well, you wore a pair of curling shoes that would have been rejected by almost any charitable organization.
With the big hole in it. But they were comfortable. You know, and if you get a comfortable pair of shoes, you want to hang on to them. There's a perfect end for John Ferguson. Field both of them off.
The Canadian strategy to keep things clean here on N6, and Ed Lukowich has been successful, much to the dismay of Stefan Hasselborg, the Swedish skip. He's been putting those corner guards out there, but they have constantly been removed.
And, you know, it's a frustrating type of game to play for Sweden, but they got to keep on brushing the rocks. They need a couple of breaks, Don, and that's why they're throwing them out in front. They hope they either get a miss out of the Canadian team or a nose hit. You know, it doesn't look too promising for them right now, but they have to have the patience. You know, they're only playing the 6th end. There's lots of time left. They have to get a couple of breaks. You know, that's why it's so important to get off to a good start in a curling game.
Well, as Michael Hasselborg said, we have to stick with that aggressive style of play. But the Canadian team is not letting them play that style.
Well, I think the Canadian team is playing with a lot more confidence now, Don. They're peeling off a lot of rocks. Lukowich just drew to the forefoot with his last rock, so they know they have the feel of the ice and the touch of the weight, and they're really curling well, so it's going to be tough for Sweden to come back and win this game.
No.
You hear Lukowich yelling easy. Look at the weight he's got on. It's like he's throwing more takeout weight than his front end or his third man. You know, that could cause a problem for him later on. But he peeled that one off nicely.
No.
You just saw Stefan Hasselborg talking to Hans Nordine, and I think what they were just discussing was the fact that has it got any keeners, and any keener down the center line. Hasselborg will throw another one out in front. Of course, Lukowich, being up 4, he may decide to go around it and really put a lot of pressure on Sweden, but I don't think so. I think he'll run it off.
The way you interpreted that conversation between Nordine and Hasselborg, I realize you're a world champion curler. I didn't realize you were a linguist.
Oh, did a little bit of teaching in Sweden, Germany, Switzerland. They're putting this one in the rings. I don't know whether it's intentional, but this one is definitely going to be in the rings. Maybe through the back of the rings.
Just out.
Very close. Lukowich is looking at it, as is John Ferguson. Now, you want to score 2 points? Maybe just draw down with that one.
This corner a little, so don't come off it. Here more.
He says, we're 4 up. We've got this game in control. They're not going to beat us now. We'll just run that baby out of there, roll out. Where does he put his next one? He has to put it in the ring somewhere. We'll hit and roll out. There's another end gone.
Well, he doesn't have to worry about hitting and rolling out. He doesn't have another shot on this end.
Oh, right.
Just 2 stones to be played here on end number 6, 1 by each side. You were so busy concentrating on
Well, I was really, you know what I was doing? I was
interpreting the Swedish conversation there. That you lost count of the stones.
I was watching the expression on Hasselberg's face, Don, when he was walking down the ice and when he was sitting in the hack. And to me, he really looks like he's not sure of the weight. You know, how you get that doubtful look on your face? And he's got it. You know, I was looking for any kind of a reaction from him when he let it go. You know, like when Lukowich is heavy, he yells, whoa, right away. But Stefan doesn't say a thing.
Vi slår igenom bara. Eller?
See, watch him.
Well, I think they're going to, well, they're just going to kick this rock down.
Vi sparar.
They're not going to throw it at all. They just kicked it down the ice.
Ja, visst. Jag var inne på att eventuellt ta den här omgången.
So the end is blanked. Stefan Hasselborg did not even throw the stone. That's somewhat unusual, isn't it?
Well, they've done that before, Don. I think they did it the last time they were in the semifinals. I think they just kicked it down. And you know, the interesting, they kicked it down and the other guy hit it with his broom just so if there was a technicality, the guy said, well, I burnt it anyway.
So end number 6 is blanked. Canada leads Sweden by a score of 5-1. Canada 5, Sweden 1. This is the way they've scored the points in this semifinal. Canada leading Sweden 5-1. The first end could prove to be the decisive end. 3 points for Canada, a steal of 3. And in the game between Scotland and the United States, it's Scotland leading 3-1. They have blanked the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th ends in that other semifinal game. Lars Wernbloom, the lead for the Swedish rink, trying to play that guard. The Swedish rink has played about 120 games this year, about the same number of games that the Lukowich foursome has played. So when you get involved as a competitive curler, you have to really dedicate yourself to the game.
Oh, 120 games, Don, is a lot of curling games. Like you say, and they're not all played in your own location. Like I'm sure the Hasselborg team went to Switzerland and Germany to curl in various competitions. And it's a big commitment by the curlers to go to other countries to curl. You know, so they spend a lot of time in it to get to this position. Unfortunately, they're down 5-1. But, you know, they spend a lot of hours perfecting their game.
Well, a week ago, we saw Marilyn Dart win the Ladies World Championship in Kelowna. And talking to Marilyn earlier today, she said they are going to be busy next year. They automatically, of course, have a berth in the Canadian Ladies Championship that will take place in Lethbridge as the defending Canadian champion. But they are going to participate in a number of ladies' fields across the country and also a few in Europe. She said there's the possibility they may also play some exhibition games in Japan. And there has been talk about Japan getting ready to make a serious challenge for one of the spots among the 10 nations that participate in the Silver Broom.
Well, I wonder if they need a national coach. That'd be about the right height for those boys, wouldn't I?
He'll wait.
That'd be kind of exciting going to Japan to curl. And you know, Don, for Hasselborg here, Lukowich team is peeling off everything. You know, they're not leaving anything around. Maybe you should think of changing your tactics, maybe putting them in the house, hoping them that they hit them on the nose, and then maybe freezing to them. You know, he had it going there. One end had a chance to get to. And I think maybe you should start looking at that because Canada's playing very well, peeling them off.
Well, they simply haven't missed an attempted peel on the previous end or so far in this end, much to the chagrin of that man.
You know, maybe put it behind the tee line and at the back of the 12-foot, hope to hit it on the nose. The rock has a little bit more distance to travel. They might throw it a little bit inside, hit it on the nose, then freeze to it.
We talked about Marilyn Dart, the Canadian Ladies and World Ladies Champion. A lot of interest created here in Toronto. An exhibition match that will take place this evening involving the Dart foursome and the 1983 Canadian and World Men's Champion, Ed Werenick. And all proceeds, of course, are going to the Heart to Heart Fund out in Thunder Bay. Rick Lang, who is involved, is going to be one of the participants, throwing third stones for Ed Werenick. And one of the questions that has been raised, if Dart wins this exhibition match, will she be known as the mechanic? Because every time she comes near the wrench, he tightens up.
I love that. I love that. Well, it's for a good cause, Don. And Rick Lang, for the last 3 or 4 years, has been working with the Heart to Heart Association. And as a matter of fact, they had that Heart to Heart bonspiel in Thunder Bay at the Port Arthur Curling Club in April 24th, 25th. And to date, you know, they've raised over $100,000 through that spiel. And one of the real forces behind it is a fellow by the name of Riel Fournier. He's from Long Lac, Ontario, and he's personally raised himself over $15,000 for that bonspiel. And to me, that's just tremendous. By the curlers for the Heart Fund.
And the Heart Fund is certainly going to benefit here with already something like $30,000 assured from gate receipts.
Oh, it's just tremendous. Of course, what can you expect from a nice guy like Rick Lang? New father. And once again, Canada not giving Sweden a chance.
We're down to third stones on this seventh end. Nothing in play. Every time the Swedes get a stone out front, Lukowich successfully peels it off.
And you can see that Sweden skip Stefan Hasselborg really understands the game, Don. First he puts him on one side of the center line, then he goes to the other side. And what he's doing is really changing shots for either Neil Houston or John Ferguson, throwing the in-turn one time, the out-turn the next. And you have to do that. That takes the form of strategy. Maybe change the turn for the other team, hoping that they hit it on the nose.
Well, this type of play, the hitting game, has proven successful, but it isn't nearly as entertaining a game as some of the matches we've witnessed where we have 8, 9, 10 rocks in play every end.
Well, that's right. The more rocks you get in play, the more interesting it becomes. But I'm sure the Canadian team are more concerned with winning the game than having a lot of rocks in play.
Although that stone delivered by Ferguson does not roll out of play, I don't think it's going to prove advantageous at all for Hasselborg.
Well, no, it's pretty hard to bury around that corner guard. All you'd be doing would be guarding the ashtray to come around there. So there's no room to hide. They're going to throw up another guard.
Michael Hasselborg, the Swedish third, very upright when he settles into the hack.
Oh, yes. And look at, he not only throws it, but he sweeps it. All he has to do is raise his broom now and say, nice shot, even though he did throw it. Throws it, sweeps it, and then compliments himself.
And that's the stone that Lukowich will be going after. Lukowich combining with Al Hackner. They are writing a curling book. They can certainly talk about their identical records in round-robin play in silver broom competition. Hackner 6-3 last year, Lukowich 6-3 this year.
Or put a chapter in how Italy beat them.
Yes.
Well, I tell you, it sure makes the Italians competition. You know, there's a lot to talk about all year. Hey, yeah, we beat Canada again. They're one of the softer teams.
Whoa! No. Yeah.
Lukowich removes that Swedish stone and rolls the shooter out as well. 5-1, Canada leads Sweden in this semifinal action. Coming to you live on CBC Sports Weekend from the CNE Coliseum in Toronto. In the other game, 3-1, Scotland leads the United States, and they are playing the 8th end. And it looks very much as though the score is going to hold at 3-1 in that game between Scotland and the USA, as they are down to skip stones, and it looks as though there will be another blank end.
Yes, it's definitely a goaltender's duel over here. You know, it's very difficult to know where to place the rocks when you're playing Scotland because they run everything. You know, you put it behind the hack, they're trying to hit it. You know, they don't leave anything around. The Hasselborg guy would trying to put it in a spot where maybe Lukowich will make an error and miss it altogether. But I'm sure he feels that the Canadian team is really playing strong and that they don't have much of a chance to win this game unless something really drastic happens to the Canadian shooting. There you see, put it in like, I might employ that earlier on, you know, because we've gone 2-3 hands. Canada hasn't missed a peel. I might put them in now. From here on in, they're playing the 7th hand. Now you look at Stefan Hasselberg's delivery, Don. Basically, he's really got a good delivery. The interesting thing is that he keeps the brush part down, but look at, he's kind of up on his toes, and his body weight really goes forward. And look at, his brush is off the ice, so he's really losing his balance a lot. If he just put his brush down on the ice, he'd be able to stay flat-footed, and he wouldn't wobble as much. Now, I'm not saying that he isn't a good curler, because he is definitely a good curler. But that one little problem he has may cause him a shot here and there.
Well, let's watch Lukowich come out of the hack, and he is very smooth.
Oh, you watch him. His broom is right down right away. See for balance? Look at it. How nice and flat-footed he is. Because he's got perfect balance there. He could really slide without a curling broom.
No.
He'd like to hang around and at least make Hasselborg make a pass at it, but no.
Well, will they kick this one down?
Well, I tell you what, they're thinking about maybe we should take a point and really do a lot of gambling. Throw up a corner guard and maybe Canada will go around it. You know, that's not a bad strategy. Looks like
On the last end, Stefan Hasselborg did not throw the final stone of the end. He simply had the lead. Lars Wernbloom kicked the rock down the ice as he blanked the end, but on this 7th end,
they're looking at the scoreboard.
They're looking at the scoreboard, and they maybe are deciding to take the point.
He says, look, if we score one in the 7th, we steal one in the 8th, we're only 2 down. We'll try to steal one in the 9th. Because the way the Canadians are curling, we're not going to get more than 1. What do you think, you guys? I mean, I'm only throwing the rock. let me know what you want to do.
Well, have you ever seen this much debate as to whether or not to blank an end?
No, not really. Not really. I'll tell you one thing.
Okay, though.
You know, he's got everybody involved, and I don't think it's
He's
right.
blanking it. He just gave it a kick.
I mean, he's the skip. He has to plan all the strategy. What is he asking the front end for? What they want to do?
So Hasselborg decides finally to blank end number 7, and the score holds. Canada leading Sweden by 4 with 3 ends remaining. It looks very much as though it will be the game many anticipated at the start of the week. Canada against Scotland to determine the 1986 world champion. Canada leads Sweden by a score of 5-1, and Scotland leads the United States 3-1. In the game between Scotland and the USA, they are now playing the 9th. We're in the 8th end. Canada, Sweden. They've had 5 consecutive blank ends in the game between Scotland and the U.S., and the record in Silver Broom play for the most blank ends in one game is 7 in 1974. Bud Somerville of the U.S. beat Peter Attinger of Switzerland 3-2. And in 77, Ragnar Kemp beat Bruce Roberts of the U.S. 5-0. And that game also produced 7 blank ends. The spectators much prefer to see Roxon play.
Well, they like to see a lot of, because more Roxon play, a lot more things can happen. You know, they're going through ports or wicking off rocks and everything else. This is just good old-fashioned curling. You put it in, we'll take it out. Look, they're very good at what they do. It's not exciting for the fans, but here you are in a world championship. You're up 5-1. You don't want to throw a lot of Roxon play. You're interested in getting into the final and getting a shot at being called the world champion.
Wasn't Ernie Richardson really one of the first to introduce that solid hitting game into the sport of curling?
Well, that's right. They were very good, Don. Let me tell you, if they got 2 up on you, it was life and death to catch them. That's how good they were. They would hit everything. And when they got 2 points up, they felt they were good enough to carry that lead right through the game, and the majority of times they did. Of course, Scottish people really didn't agree with that. They liked a lot of rock. They call it nay curling. They said, Mr. Richardson, he says, there's nay curling. He says, you can't play curling that way, lad. The more Roxon play, the better the Scottish people like it. But unfortunately, the game has changed. There's a little bit more Roxon play now. Not at this World Championship, but you go to the Briar, a lot of Roxon play, because there are so many teams that are equal, Don. You have to gamble early to get the advantage.
Ernie Richardson, of course, from Regina, the only 4-time Briar winner. He also won the World Championship 4 times. In those days, it was known as the Scotch Cup before Air Canada became involved as a sponsor, and it was changed to the Silver Broom. This year, the first year that the event has been sponsored by Hexagon International.
Hurry! Hurry! All hard. Put him hard. Hurry!
Well, there's the nose hit that Stefan Hasselborg has been hoping for. Trailing by 4 and with 3 ends remaining, does he now have to try and get in behind that guard, or does he try and put another stone out front?
Well, listen, they've thrown 16 rocks up. Canada's peeled them all up. Finally, they've got one up. He has to go in right now. You know, he wants to score 2 points. They're playing the 8th end. He has to score 2 points. So he's going to go in around the corner guard, make the shots more difficult. But it looks to me like he's going to play the in-turn, put it on the other side, and say, okay, look, if you run one of those off, we'll make you waste a few shots on that corner guard, then we'll go around the other one, which isn't bad strategy, Don.
But not the strategy you would employ if you were skipping.
Well, I think I would go in right away and put it behind the T-line. Even if they run the one off, I'd go the other side. You know, Canada's really playing well. There's always the danger Canada could put it on the button, but, you know, they're up 5-1. Like, I don't even think Canada's really concerned if they score 2 here. They're up 2, playing the 9th end. They'll blank the 9th end and be 2 up coming home.
That's the stone that Ed Lukowich wants removed. John Ferguson with his first stone of this 8th end.
Clean.
He certainly doesn't want to miss this one.
He catches a corner, rolls the shooter out.
Well, Sweden's got 4 rocks left. And I think he has to go in now. His third, John Ferguson, is only 1. Canada's got 3 rocks left, so I think he has to go in around that corner guard right away. And Don, he'd like to take it deep. He doesn't mind going behind the tee line because he'd give the rock a little bit more time to curl in deeper behind the rock. And not only that, he'll be able to come down on top of it. He doesn't want it stopping in the top of the 12th, but he wants it well to the back so he can get another one in there on top of it.
Michael Hasselborg, the Swedish third, was telling me that he and his brother have a company that produces curling equipment in Sweden, and they have designed a new style of shoe that has proven to be quite successful this year.
Look at that.
They'd probably have a lot more success selling that shoe and promoting it if they could add the title world champion to their list of accomplishments, but doesn't look as though they're going to do that in this semifinal battle against Canada.
You know,
Still wait.
curling can be a cruel game. They threw 16 rocks the last 2 ends. Canada peeled off every one of those rocks. Now they finally get a cornerstone up, got a chance to get in around. Look what happens. He rubs the guard and stays right there.
The only stones in play on this 8th end. 5-1. Canada leads Sweden. The winner of this game will take on the winner of the Scotland-USA battle in the championship tomorrow afternoon. It will happen for you on CBC Sports Weekend.
Ferguson trying to kill them both.
He removes his own. And the rock just delivered by Ferguson stays there.
That wasn't your hardest? Well, it was definitely your crookedest.
What I think he means by that, Ferguson said it wasn't my hardest. And of course, you heard what Lukowich said. And what I think he meant, Ferguson come out, he was inside the broom, and then just absolutely heaved it out to the broom. That's what I think he means by crookedest. That's a great remark.
One of the advantages we have in the sport of curling, that the competing skips wear the wireless microphones, and we can eavesdrop on the conversations. And that was one of the choice comments we've heard this year, as the Canadian rink standing there laughing, and Lukowich making reference to the missed shot by John Ferguson. Of course, when you're leading 5-1, you're much more relaxed.
Oh, yes, there's no question about it. For Michael Hasselborg here, he's a little bit down the center line. And they've jumped on it again. They're concerned about getting it around the guard and whether he has enough weight to get it in the rings. Stefan's coming out to help him. Oh, he's got a good-looking shot. Into the 12-foot. And fairly well buried around that guard. Traditionally, you know, you see the Canadian or North American teams really use the broom really well. But look at this. Here's the team from Sweden. 1 brush, 3 brooms. Look at the action on those corn brooms. A lot of snap to it. Good sweeping that got that rock in. Brush is right next to the rock, and it's very important that you sweep in front of the running course of that rock, not off to the side.
Have they conducted any tests as to which is more effective, the brush or the broom?
No, they really haven't, but the advantage the brush has, of course, it never leaves the ice. The corn broom, you see the swinging of that corn leaves the ice momentarily. Up swing and the downswing. The brush never leaves the ice, so it's very effective. The only trouble with the brush, you get down very low on the handle of the brush. You cannot tell how fast that rock is going because you're down really low to the ice. Lukowich attempting the raise takeout here.
He just drives it past that Swedish stone sitting in the rings. The shooter rolls out of play. Sweden lies one. Further to the brush broom situation, one of the big advantages, I would guess, with the brush is that you can work in a confined area much more effectively.
All right. When there's a lot of rocks in play, and you know, when you have to step over them and everything else, the broom with its big sweeping motion, it's very difficult when there's a couple of rocks very close together. The brush, you know, it's a very short stroke, so they can play in a very confined area. Well, they played 3 ends to score 2 points, and they have a chance now. They're going to put it over on the open side, which is a good shot. You know, a lot of people might think, well, why doesn't he go in around that corner guard? The trouble with going in around that corner guard, Lukowich will hit that front one, and if he gets a good angle on it, he may make the double. So that's why he's going over to the other side.
After struggling with his draw weight through the first 4 ends of this match, Stefan Hasselborg seemed to regain the touch on the 5th. And now he's trying to put a second stone into the rings to lie 2.
He's got nice looking weight. Nordine tapping the ice where he wants it.
I'll throw it for regular weight. We got a piece, you can go for it.
You hear what he's saying? If he's got a piece, he's going for it. The interesting thing is Lukowich played the in turn to try and run back the double. Now he's going to the out turn. And you heard him say to Ferguson, if I got a piece of it, watch it closely. And what he's looking at, Don, if he hits it thin enough, he could squirt across and make the double. But his big concern...
Regular weight.
See, just establishing with Ferguson and his front end. Regular weight. He's not going to hum this one. He's going to throw regular weight. If he hits it and rolls on the center line, not a bad shot. He's going to concede the 2, and yet Stefan Hasselborg will still have to draw to get us 2. But he wants to concentrate on making this hit. He doesn't mind giving up 2, but he certainly doesn't want to give up 3. He's close to the double. That's why they're sweeping it. He's very close. No, a little too thick.
He just rolled across the face of that stone over on the edge of the 12-foot. So now Stefan Hasselborg, with the final rock of the 8th end, has a chance for 2.
Well, you see, Don, they swept it all the way down the ice because if he hits it just a fraction thinner, look, he hit about a half a rock. It's a lot of action on it. If he hit a quarter of a rock, he's going to make the double because look where his shooter rolls to, just in front of the other Swedish stone.
Lukowich leads by 4, but he is by no means home and cooled out, because if Hasselborg gets his 2 here, he could go right to the final stone of the 10th end. You can rest assured that he'll be gambling for all it's worth on ends 9 and 10.
Good strategy here. He's playing exactly the same draw that he did with his first one. He should know the weight, but they are working hard on it. Is he going to make it? Yeah, he's going to be there. A new game.
So Stefan Hasselborg with a final rock draw on end number 8 picks up a pair and cuts the Canadian advantage to just 2 points. It's now 5.
It's pretty swift. Of course, this game here, they're just playing the 9th end. It'll roughly take them about another 30 minutes to play. And Sweden's back in this game now, Don. Now all they need is 1 nose hit, and if they can get one in around, steal another point, then they're only 1 down coming home without last rock.
Lars Wernbloom, 24-year-old Swedish lead.
Nej, jag vill ha det där ute.
He's a travel agent, so I guess he is assigned the task of booking the majority of flights for this Swedish rink.
Field weight.
Total attendance so far at the Silver Broom here at the CNE Coliseum, 54,063. Coliseum accommodates about 5,500 spectators, and
Off, clean.
they have had between 4,000 and 5,500 for almost every draw. Brent Syme curling at 82% as opposed to 71% for Lars Wernbloom, removing that Swedish stone and rolling the shooter out of play as well.
And Sweden will throw up 7 guards on this end, hoping just to get one nose hit or one miss out of Canada, and they'll draw around it. This one may be a little bit stronger than they want, because it looks like it's going to be very close to the rings, if not in. And it is in. And that's where they do not want it, because it completely changes the whole end. If Canada hits and sticks there, they're going to have to say, okay, do we hit it, or do we throw up a center guard? If they throw up a center guard and they don't make their shots, Canada could score 2, and then they're really out of the game. So that rock has changed the whole complexion of this end by being in the rings.
Clean. Clean. Whoa. Off. Off.
Canada lies one as Brent Syme removes that Swedish stone.
Well, for Stefan Hasselborg, if I was him, I'd throw another one right out in the center line. I certainly wouldn't freeze to that one, Stefan. Out in front. You know, Don, because what you want to do is keep Canada shooting at that rock on the center line, and then maybe with your last one draw around that one that's in the rings.
Well, this is a position that Ed Lukowich has found himself in throughout most of the week during round-robin play, trying to play the catch-up game. Fortunately for Canada, they got off to that quick start, 3 in the first, another steal on the second for a 4-0 lead. Swedish second hands Nordine.
Ja. Hur lång är den? Den kommer att köla över kanske. Ja, kom igen då. Nej.
He's going to come down alongside that Canadian rock. How would you score that shot?
I tell you what, I'd give them 1 for that, because now if Canada hits this one, there's a good chance that they could push their other one closer into the 4-foot and maybe roll their shooter on. And they'll be lying 2, and then what do? Then you really have to gamble.
Regular.
That's why I would have thrown it right out in front on the center line.
Well, Neil Houston has slipped slightly earlier in the match. He was curling at 93%. He's now down at 89%.
Clean. Come on, break.
But that's still better than an average day's work. And I think Lukowich is quite happy to remove everything.
Well, that's right. He doesn't want too many rocks in play. He doesn't want any rocks in play. He's very comfortable beating 2 up.
Ideally, I suppose he'd like to blank this end.
Oh, sure. 2 up coming home with the advantage last rock, you're in good shape.
Unless, of course, you can get 2, 3, or 4.
Oh, sure. But look at Hasselborg. Now he's putting it out in front. To me, I think he really made a mistake there. Like, he should have thrown another one out in front, made Canada shoot on it. Then, with his first rock, go around that one that was in the top of the 12th.
Bra, Hasse.
Canada has last rock advantage on this 9th end, and Ed Lukowich is calling for Neil Houston, his second, to remove that Swedish stone.
Clean. One. Clean.
Here, Lukowich yelling clean, clean. And what he's saying is, don't leave it, you guys. Just keep it clean so the rock doesn't pick up something underneath. Just keep it clean. And that's a very important thing to learn for people in the front end. You never, ever pick up your brush or your broom. You just brush it or sweep it lightly to make sure no debris is in front of it, regardless whether the rock is obviously very heavy.
31-year-old Michael Hasselborg, a teacher of business economics in Stockholm, with his first stone of this ninth end. Sweden trailing by a score of 5-3. Just pulls it off to the right of the center line. And immediately Ed Lukowich moves out to position the room for his third, John Ferguson. Ferguson also has an advantage in percentage over his Swedish counterpart.
.85% is a very respectable day's work. That's excellent curling for a third. You know, granted, the shots have been fairly simple, fairly wide open, but
Gotta go hard. Hurry!
you got to go hard, which tells me that he's very close to hitting it on the nose.
Hold it.
He won't roll that shooter the way he wanted to. So now Hasselborg has something out front that he can hide behind.
That's the rock he's been waiting for throughout this whole end. Hasselborg just determining in his own mind how much ice he has to take to pull that rock in around that guard and in the forefoot. Look at Michael. He's up again, sweeping it. Stefan Hasselborg watching the line. Hans Nordine, Lars Wernbloom, Michael Hasselborg all sweeping this rock, trying to pull it into the forefoot area. Look at this. Beautiful weights. Into the 8 foot, catches a good piece of the forefoot. That's an excellent curling shot. And for Lukowich, Don, he's going to have to run that front one off. Hope that John Ferguson can run it straight back. Maybe clip it out, roll those two out, and also a shooter. Look at that. Perfect weight by Michael Hasselborg. Right on the corner of the forefoot, directly behind that guard. That's good control. You know, that's really nice curling.
So now John Ferguson will attempt to drive that Canadian stone out in front of the rings back onto that Swedish shot rock in the forefoot.
Yeah. Hurry!
Well, they're going to have to go on this one because it looked to me like Ferguson maybe turned it a bit inside. They're working hard on it. Is he going to make it? No. Just pushed it by. And you know what? Better he had rolled his shooter, hit it a little bit thinner and rolled his shooter out of there at least, but now it's still there. You'll see here that he just hits it a little bit on the inside and drives it straight by the Swedish rock. Very close to being a good shot, but really, it's in Sweden's favor now.
Well, it looked as though Canada was in complete control of this game. But that deuce on the 8th for Sweden cut the deficit to 2, and now they have that shot rock sitting in the forefoot.
Well, you'll see that rock pretty well buried. Well, Hasselberg's taking his time here, Don, and I think he has to decide. He wants to pull it in around that center guard, just half in behind that center guard, half covering that one in the forefoot, but in the rings. Maybe just biting the 12-foot.
Stefan Hasselborg's first delivery of this 9th end. Sweden leads 1, trails by 2. Or lies 1, I should say, trails by 2.
And they have a laid up. Broomed it all the way down the ice. Now it's starting to come over. He's got good-looking line. And maybe a little too tight, Don, but a good shot.
Sweden now lies 2, and the roar you heard from the crowd at the CNE Coliseum just a few moments ago. The game between Scotland and the United States is over. Scotland winning by a score of 3-1, 6 consecutive blank ends. On the 10th, Steve Brown of the U.S. had nowhere to hide his first stone. He put it in the 4-foot, and David Smith of Scotland removed it and rolled out. It will go into the books as a 3-1 Scottish victory over the Americans in the semifinal. So Scotland will now await the winner of this game. Sweden and Canada to determine an opponent for tomorrow's championship. Canada leads by 2, but the tying points are in the rings.
Well, Don, this is similar to the very first end, facing Stefan Hasselborg. The same thing is happening to Ed Lukowich. There's 2 rocks, partially hidden by a corner guard, and he has to hit a half a rock to make a double. They yelled right away. He wants to make sure he gets one of them. Now it's starting to stay straight. Now it's curling. Is he going to make the... He's very close. Oh, a great shot. Oh, a beautiful shot by Ed Lukowich.
Here it is again.
Well, unlike Hasselborg, Ed Lukowich just makes an outstanding shot, hits a half a rock, makes contact with the other Swedish rock, and spills them both. And that's clutch curling, let me tell you.
Facing 2 stones on this 9th end with his first rock, Ed Lukowich certainly gets his Canadian Championship squad out of some difficulty. Both skips have not curled as well as the other members of the rink as far as percentages go, but then again, they have also had the more difficult shots.
Now for Hasselborg. Oh, he come propelling out of that hack, Don. And actually had to take weight off the rock. He was taking his hand off the rock as opposed to reaching through it. It looks like he has a nice line.
Sweden lies 1.
And for Ed Lukowich, a cold draw to the edge of the 4-foot. Similar to his shot, Don, in the 5th end, only there was 2 rocks in there. This rock is over a little bit more. He's taken lots of ice, but the edge of the 4-foot, you'll see John Ferguson, and they want to score this point. They certainly don't want to give up one. There'll only be 1 up coming home. They make this one, there are 3 up coming home. They're fairly comfortable. The difficulty for Lukowich, of course, is he threw a pretty strong takeout with his first one, and now he's forced to make a delicate draw.
Of course, and going back to that 5th end when he was facing those 2 stones, that was a big point for the Canadian ring.
Oh, yes.
Clean.
You hear him say, lots of room, lots of room.
Now. Now.
Front ender now starting to work on it. He's going to be close.
Now. Now.
Boy, it's got to stop. Starting to pull over now. Oh, he's got a good-looking shot. Look at that. Right on the tee line.
Ed Lukowich with the final stone up the 9th end, draws to the 4, and he'll head home in this semifinal, leading by 3. 6-3, Canada leads Sweden in this Silver Broom semifinal here at the CNE Coliseum in Toronto. The winner will face Scotland in tomorrow's Silver Broom final. David Smith, 22-year-old Scottish skip, piloting his squad to a 3-1 triumph over the United States, represented by Steve Brown of Madison, Wisconsin.
Boy, that Scottish team, when they get ahead, they're pretty tough to catch. 3-1, he scored 2 in the 3rd end to go up 3-1, and he carried it right through the 10th end.
Undefeated this week, a 9-0 record in round-robin play, and the 10th win in semifinal action.
I know one fella's buttons are popping, and that's Chuck Hay. He's very proud of that son of his.
Mike Hay, the son of Chuck Hay, a former world champion. playing second stone for the Scottish rink. And as we mentioned earlier, Peter Smith, the lead, was with David Aitken when he won the Uniroyal World Junior Championship in Dartmouth a couple of weeks ago. So he could do something in this 1986 curling season no other competitor has achieved. That's a junior and a men's title in the same year.
That's unbelievable. Winning the Junior World Championship and the Men's World Championship. Wouldn't that be that's quite an honor, isn't it? Let me tell you. I know some curlers never get a chance to play it. He wins 2 in a matter of 2 weeks.
Canada leading 6-3, playing this 10th end. Canada getting off to that great start with a steal of 3 on the first end, another steal on the second for a 4-0 advantage.
And for the Lukowich team now, Don, all they're doing is counting rocks. There's one behind the hack. They want to hit and roll out. You see him waving his brush, and he wants to peel that one off and roll the shooter off. He doesn't want any rocks in front of that rings for somebody to hide behind. So,
Clean.
you hear me? All clean a lot. Means he's very close.
Right up.
Ooh, is he ever close? Close is only good in horseshoes. And a bad miss by Houston. And I think he just upped his weight a bit, Don, and it ran fairly straight, because as soon as he let it go, you heard Ed Lukowich say, clean, clean, which means he's very close. But Lukowich, of course, not realizing early that Houston really thrown that one hard.
Well, with Hasselborg requiring 3 to tie and 4 to win, and only 6 rocks still to be played, it appears as though he is going to try to put up another corner guard, give himself one more option.
Oh, yes. So what he wants them to do by putting up the other center corner guard, he wants Canada to shoot at that one, maybe waste a few rocks, and then maybe with his third man's first rock going around the corner guard, then maybe Canada will peel it off, they'll draw to the other side to lie 2, and hope for one more miss out of Canada.
Well, while we watch some of the action here, let's congratulate the lead for the Scottish rink, Peter Smith, who is standing by down at ice level on that 3-1 triumph. Peter, we had the opportunity to chat with you in Dartmouth. We congratulated you there on your World Junior Championship. You fellas have really curled up a storm this week in Toronto. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That game against the United States, you jumped into that lead. Was that your strategy, to just keep it clean the rest of the way?
Yes, once we went 9-0 in round robin, we knew we had last stone. We knew if we could keep it clean early on, keep it close. And once we got that 2 at third end, it was a great jump, and we just kept it clean there on in.
Peter, have you thought at all about the possibility of becoming the first to be both a junior and men's champion in the same year?
Thought about it. Getting closer, just one game away now.
Be pretty difficult, I'm sure, not to think about it.
Yes.
Have you watched any of the action over here? Have you been sneaking a look at the game between Canada and Sweden at all?
Occasionally, I saw Lukowich playing a great draw for 1 against 2, about the 4th end, was it?
5th end.
5th end, yes, that was a great shot. And his double at the 9th there was an excellent shot as well. Took the pressure off himself.
Well, Canada appears as though they will be providing the opposition tomorrow. Is that what you anticipated?
At the beginning of the week, I'd been delighted to play Canada in the final. Now, yes, I'm quite happy to play them in the final. We've got last stone, play the same game as we played against USA, hopefully.
Well, you do have the advantage of having that last rock on the very first end as a result of going undefeated through round-robin play.
Yes.
Is that an advantage to have last rock in the very first end?
Definitely, I think, yes. You're able to keep things clean.
It suits your type of game.
Definitely, because there's a straight hand up either side. You can peel guards quite easily if you play the brush.
Well, Peter, we congratulate you again on your championship in Dartmouth at the Uniroyal, and congratulate you on your victory this afternoon in the semifinal, and good luck tomorrow in that championship game.
Thank you very much.
Peter Smith, who throws lead stones for the Scottish champions, and John Ferguson removing one of the Swedish rocks sitting out front. And now down to third stones. Not much alternative for the Swedes, but to go in behind that corner guard. 80% for Canada as opposed to 72% for Sweden through 9 ends of play.
And for Sweden, Don, only 4 rocks to come. And it looked to me like Hasselborg indicated that he wanted Michael to drop it short of the rings. Like, I might be very tempted to go in now and hope Canada either misses that corner guard or hits it on the nose so I can get another win in around it. But, you know, when you're 3 down coming home, especially the way the Canadian team has been playing, it's very difficult to get 3.
That was an interesting comment by Peter Smith. He said if someone had said at the start of the week we'd play Canada in the final, it would have been very delighted because the Lukowich rink came in as an overwhelming favorite to win this silver broom.
Well, I think Lukowich was the overall favorite, but let me tell you, the Scottish team's been playing very well. And I thought young Mr. Smith was going to say for a minute that we hope he plays like he did against us in the round robin because Scotland dominated the game.
Oh, we could play it this way. We just got to be pretty careful it doesn't bounce. Yeah. I think this is the better way. I think we have to take a gamble. You see, if you hair this red one, you stay on the other one for another corner guard over there, and that's what he's hoping for. He's hoping for 2 corners out of this. Okay. Let's just go for the double. Like, if you hit it dead onto that one, you're going to roll a fair ways. If you hit it straight back, you're going to roll him off. You're still going to have only 1 guard. You just have to play it fairly thick.
Well, as you heard in the comments from Ed Lukowich, not only do you have to plan your own game, you have to try and figure out what your opponent is thinking.
Well, what he's really concerned about, he doesn't want to leave 2 corner guards, but more importantly, what he is really concerned about is that he hits the front one and maybe drives that other red one, just ticks it and rolls it into the rings over to the other side. And if he hits it fairly thick, he may leave a corner guard and 1 in the ring, so that's what he's watching for. We'll see if he throws this one a little bit crooked, like Lukowich said. Very fast backswing.
Clean. Whoop, whoop. Right up. Right up. Right up. Come on, hurry, 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 hurry.
Boy, he hasn't got much weight on this one, Don.
He barely had enough to push that stone through.
Boy, for a minute, you know, if he hits that one just a little bit more, and he would put that red one in the rings. See, he never changed a thing. Now there's 2 guards. Now Hasselborg definitely has to go in, naturally, because he's only got 3 rocks left. But if he goes in around, and Lukowich only takes off 1 guard, then Hasselborg can draw around again. And he'll be lying 2 in-around guards. And that's why it was important that he at least removed one of those center guards, because if he removes 2 of them, and one of them and his shooter, there's only 1 corner guard up. Lukowich would run it, then it's a wide open house, and he's got a wide open hit to win the game. But now with 2 up there, it's a little bit more difficult for Lukowich. This game is not over yet. Don, I've seen stranger things happen in a curling game. He's a long way out there. Now it's starting to come across.
Trying to take it deep, and they get it into the 4-foot.
Well, now Lukowich is looking at how much room he's got.
Bump. Yeah, easy bump. The spot has been coming. If we rack, okay. Roll something off.
That wasn't very good ice calling by Hasselborg, I'll tell you, because that rock should have just skinned that first one and got really in deep and get around that second corner guard that's closest to the rings. Now if Lukowich comes down, just ticks that front one, how do you bury the other one around the corner guard? You may bury it around, but the other one's going to be wide open. So it wasn't really a very good shot from the standpoint of burying it.
And at this point, Hasselborg, of course, has to get all the remaining rocks into the rings.
That's right. So Lukowich is not going to be upset if he ticks that guard.
Anything, once it's on top of the
Of course, what he doesn't want to do is hit about 3/4 of the rock and drive that other red one in. This is concentration now. You heard him say, just good board weight.
Oh.
He elbow right away. He's a long way out there. Too much weight, maybe. Has he got it? He's well by the bar. He's got a good corner of it.
That's it. Canada has advanced to the championship game against Scotland.
Good game. That's right.
Ed Lukowich, John Ferguson, Neil Houston, and Brent Syme will move into tomorrow's World Championship final against Scotland. David Smith, Hammy McMillan, Mike Hay, and Peter Smith. And we'll have that game for you tomorrow afternoon on CBC Sports. Tomorrow afternoon, the wind-up to the 1986 curling season. Canada against Scotland for the 1986 World Men's Curling Championship. It will be David Smith, the 22-year-old Scottish skip, against 40-year-old Ed Lukowich of Calgary, the Canadian champion. First of all, we'll chat with David Smith. David, congratulations. So far, a perfect record in this Silver Broom in Toronto.
Yeah, well, everything's been going our way this week. You know, we've had the rubs, and the boys have played very well, and I'm absolutely delighted to be in this position, and to meet Ed tomorrow is an even greater thrill to me. It really is.
Well, as your brother said earlier when we chatted with him right after your 3-1 win over Steve Brown of the U.S., he said if someone had said at the beginning of the week I'd be playing Canada in the final, I would have been quite delighted.
I'm sure he would have, especially when he's already won the Uniroyal this year. You know, he's won the big one he was going for, and to be in the final of this, you know, it's just it's a thrill of a lifetime. It really is. We came here just hoping to do our best because it's 18 years since Scotland have been in the final. Who have actually won it? It was Chuck Hay who won it 18 years ago, so I'm absolutely delighted. You know, I'm stuck for words, really.
Well, you should be delighted. You've curled very well all week. Putting this rink together, Mike Hay, a previous skip, Hammy McMillan has also skipped the rink. How was it assembled? How did you determine the positions you would play?
Well, I played for Mike for 3 years at second. You know, I kind of started my apprenticeship to him. And I wanted to move up this season, so I decided I was going to leave the team. And I had a chance to play with my brother, Peter, my cousin Gregor, and Hammy. So we played together last year in the Uniroyal in Perth. And this year the boys wanted me to skip, so I went on the head, and Hammy was good enough to step down and play third. We got to the likes of the Briar finals over here, the Scottish finals, and Gregor couldn't make it. He was heading off to a wedding, so Mike came in to replace him, and the rest history. We managed to make it this far.
9 wins in round-robin play, a semi-final win over the U.S. It appears as though you prefer the hitting game.
It does, doesn't it? That's the way we play in Scotland. Perth ice is very straight, so that is our forte, as it were. We played it today. It wouldn't be very exciting for the crowd, but hell, it's the World Championships. You can't afford to make any mistakes now.
It's the World Championship. That's exactly right. That's what you said, and I think Ed Lukowich would agree with that. I think you would prefer to play the draw game, kind of play the junk game, but here in the World Championships, it's dictated, the ice, I think, has that you play the hitting game, hasn't it, Ed?
Well, that's absolutely right, Don. Like, I think percentage curling, like the way the Scottish boys there have been curling, they've been able to curl 90 or 95% on hits, and the draw game on this ice is down around 65 to 70% that a person can curl. And like even Sweden there was behind us today and really struggling, and they had a tough time doing much on percentage-wise with the draw game. So the hitting game is definitely better here, and I hope we have a great game tomorrow. I'd like to see it 1 point apart all the way, and then it'd be a good game. If anybody gets 2 or 3 up, I think, that'll be pretty well lit, because it's tough ice to catch up on.
Well, Ed, this week, has there been any extra pressure on you being the Canadian champion, playing here before a hometown crowd?
Oh, I certainly think there is. Last year we played Pat Ryan in the final of Alberta right at the Calgary Club, which was our home club last year, and I found that very, very, difficult, because everybody was pulling for us, and it seems to just put extra pressure on the team, and I think you want to do so well for them that you tend to put the extra pressure on yourself, and it's really not much you can do about it. Like, we talked about it a lot before we came here, but we never did too much about it. And I think, perhaps we've played here enough during the week now that, that it's, we've kind of settled down. But one thing, if we're playing well, like today we were playing fairly well and the crowd was really on our side, that really gives us a lift as well.
Did it bother you when the crowd got on you a couple of times during the week?
No, I was glad to see that, because I think that helped us to kind of break out of the shell we were in. The fact that everybody was always feeling sorry when we missed was tough on us. And then, a couple of people started to get on the back and catcall a little bit, gave us a chance to, kind of feel, well, there's people here that are a little angry too that we're missing, and aren't pleased with us. So I think that kind of brought us on a bit.
You think that perhaps one of the reasons your rink hasn't been as sharp here during round-robin play as you were at the Briar and Kitchener is because of the layoff, the long interval between the Canadian Championship and this world title?
Well, I think it was more just, getting used to this ice. I think that we played here very much the start like we did in Kitchener, and I think that Russ Howard, who we played in the final of the Briar, would have had a tough time here too, because he really likes to play a finesse draw game, and I think he would have probably ran into the same pitfall we did. We only started, you know, hitting a little bit a couple of games ago. We were drawing for the first 6 games, and it wasn't working very well. So, you know, I think the Scottish boys here have played the right game, and you know, they've picked up the ice right from the very first game, and they've used it the right way.
What do you look for then tomorrow?
Well, they get the toss, so they certainly have the advantage there. And, you know, I think it's a big advantage in a game. It certainly wasn't in our game with Sweden today, because we managed to steal 3 and nullify that. But it could be a factor. And, you know, I hope it's a real close game all the way, so that, you know, that it isn't just a peeling game. I hope that both teams are able to make some good shots. And, you know, I hope it's a last draw game, because it's a world championship, and I'd like to see it go right down the last draw.
David Smith, if you win tomorrow, do you think Chuck Hale will be the first one out of the stands and down onto the ice?
He'll roll on, I'm sure.
What kind of game do you look for?
Tomorrow, well, we'll just take it as it comes. As Eddie says, we've got last stone at the first end, which should be an advantage, but you never know. It just depends what the ice is like tomorrow. It was very keen and straight today, so we'll wait and see what happens tomorrow.
David Smith of Scotland, Ed Lukowich of Canada. Good luck in tomorrow's championship game. And we'll have it for you here on CBC Sports Weekend tomorrow afternoon. Now let's move over to 2-time world champion Don Duguid. And Don, in that game between Canada and Sweden, obviously there were some very key shots.
Well, there was some key shots, you know, and I was really pleased to see Eddie get his draw weight. He made a great draw shot in the 5th and again in the 9th. But he played very, very well. But I think the big thing for him is that he got off to a great start. Hasselborg really had a little bit of trouble the first end, as did his front end. He got himself in trouble. He was attempting a double takeout, Donnie, and the rock never curled for him. And that's the difficulty in the first end when you have a tough shot to make. You don't know how the ice is going to react. You'll see here he gets a good piece of the rock, but he was trying to make the double or triple and get out of the end. Unfortunately, Canada stole 3.
Well, that got the Canadian squad off to a great start. As we commented during the course of the match, one of the very few times that they were away to that very fast start throughout the entire week.
Well, that's right. It was very encouraging for the Canadian team, but let me tell you, they're up against it against Scotland, because this guy can hit and he can draw. Here he is playing in the 3rd end. He hasn't thrown many draws, and look at this great shot he makes. And this was the difference in the game. He has to chip and roll one in. He makes a good shot. He hits it, and he rolls his shooter in. It gets 2, and that was the difference in that game. So Scotland's playing very, very well.
Well, Scotland picked up 1 in the first end. The U.S. got 1 on the second, and then Scotland with that split off the rock sitting just out front of the rings with the 2 on the third, and that's the way it wound up, 3-1. Scotland defeating Steve Brown of the United States. They came within 1 end of equaling a Silver Broom record for most blank ends in one game. They had 6 consecutive blank ends.
Well, it doesn't seem like it's good curling. They say it's very boring, but let me tell you, this Scottish team all week long have been very proficient. They like to get ahead, and they defy you to come back. And that's going to be the trouble for Lukowich tomorrow. Scotland has the advantage of last rock, and let me tell you, that is a real advantage. If they get 2 the very first end on Canada, it's going to be tough for Lukowich to get back in the game.
Well, I think back to the World Junior Championship in Dartmouth. Kevin Martin of Edmonton went undefeated through round-robin play. He won his semifinal game and then lost in the final to Scotland. I wonder if young Peter Smith is thinking at all about that.
You think turnaround is fair play? Eh? Well, that's the difficulty. You know, you go through the game and you go win all 10 games, and then you're playing a fella in the final who's lost 3 games. It doesn't seem like a fair situation, but it really is, and that's the World Championship. The Smith team has been playing very well, Don. They are going to be tough, and if Lukowich plays the way he did today, he is equally going to be as tough. It's going to be a real exciting game, I think.
Well, I think that has to be very encouraging for Ed Lukowich and the Canadian fans. The fact that after struggling and being a little frustrated earlier in the week, they seem to settle down today and seem to get that touch that carried them so successfully to the Canadian Championship in Kitchener.
Well, that's right. They struggled all week, and I think the very opening end, getting off to a good start, was really to their benefit. They controlled the game throughout, and that's good for Ed Lukowich. That's the Ed Lukowich that we know from the Briar you saw today. The team played very well.
2-time Canadian champion Ed Lukowich of Calgary, the 1978 Briar champion, loser there in the semifinal, winning the championship this year, advancing to tomorrow's final. He'll take on David Smith of Scotland, and we'll have that game for you tomorrow afternoon on CBC Sports Weekend. So, Brian, we'll see you tomorrow here at the CNE Coliseum.